going on, everyone? The Arid Lord is here. I don't have all of the crazy background stuff that I do for my Walking Dead reviews because this is actually, I think, my first book review on this channel, which I think is pretty substantial, but also kind of surprising considering I am a writer in my spare time. It's not something I've ever involved on my channel. I have never read chapters of my book or discussed things of that nature. The only exception is something actually my friend P Dog, I'll have to tell him, it's kind of crazy. It is basically the 10-year anniversary of a series called The Writer's Block, which is still on YouTube. And it is basically my high school / college level advice, the two of us together, talking about plot structure, story setting, all these different things. We actually interviewed some random YouTuber who did book reviews. I don't even know if he still does them. Very kind of bizarre review, if I'm remembering it. But all of that is on YouTube if you so choose. It was just a way, because we both enjoy writing, and it was just a way for us to chat about it together. So yeah, I'm going to, review something today that is not my writing. As I've said in the past, if the opportunity to talk about my writing comes up on this channel, I will do so. There's nothing to talk about now. In my 12-year anniversary video back in December, way back in December at this point, it's been a long time if you can believe it, I talked about that, how I had a book that was getting published, but I kept a lot of the details about it on the down low. The only thing I think I said is it's an adult dystopian book. I mean, I say adult, which is the industry genre specific term for it, but it's technically new adult. The main characters, the core group, they're their mid-20s, I guess, kind of like myself. So, it's right out of adolescence, but the early years of adulthood. And new adult is not an official genre, but it is and it isn't. I don't see a lot of agents, literary agents, representing it. It's kind of almost if you've written new adult, you're not you've done something wrong. You haven't written an adult book. You also haven't written a young adult book. You've made this bastard hybrid that you need to go back and edit. So, but I mean, I would technically classify it as new adult, although you could easily, just to make it simple, it's adult. I mean, there's a lot of adult themes in the book. But anyway, I went on a 3-minute tangent. We're not here to discuss that. We are here to discuss this. Can you see this? Yes, you can. It is Fairy Tale by Stephen King. I also do read in my spare time, of course. If I'm a writer, I have to read to get some inspiration and knowledge about what the hell I'm doing. I read this book recently. I finished it recently. It took me probably way longer than I thought. Just looking right now, the book is almost 600 pages. I don't know what the word count on that is. Now, I mean, most readers don't care about word count. Writers do, because agents, that's one gatekeeper thing. Agents, when you submit your query letter, you'll say what the genre is, and you'll also say the word count, because the word count gives an idea for the publisher how many pages they have to churn for your book to actually hit the shelves. If it's a 200,000 word book, you're going to be having a lot of freaking pages. And for a debut author, that's considered a risk to publishers. But if you fall lower, 80,000, 90,000, again, every genre is different. A fantasy genre, okay, there's leadway for a larger word count. Young adult, middle school, you're going to be lower. This book is freaking long. It's probably in the 200,000s if I had to say the word count. I don't know. It is a very long book. I will say, so I've read a fair bit of Stephen King. He's not my favorite author, but I do like his writing style for what it is. The Shining, Misery, It, the classic horror Stephen King. Like, I mean, you can obviously think of the film adaptations of any of the titles that I just said, but the book was obviously the OG back in the day. So this is by Stephen King. I guess he wrote this. It's kind of funny because I wrote my book, the one I was telling you about just a little while ago. I wrote that over the course of COVID. Apparently, the backstory is that he also wrote this over the course of COVID, and that he wrote something that he wanted to write. I want to find this because he talks about this in one of the early pages. Let's see. I'm trying to find it now. I don't know. There's an excerpt in here basically talking about how he wanted to write something that he wanted to write about. Basically where the idea for this book came about. And so that's how this book, Fairy Tale, came about. And the general gist of this book is that it's a young adult protagonist, this kid, Charlie Reed. The book starts out with a put upon situation where the general gist is that his mom dies in a freak accident on a bridge, as he refers to it, that goddamn bridge, because that's like the thing that like took his family away. And then there's a cascading of events where his dad turns into an alcoholic, and his life is very rough from that point forward. And the catalyst really for the story is that he like makes like a deal with God, or a prayer with God, something with God, where he says, like, if you get me out of this situation, I'll like do something, like I'll be good, like basically to kind of have like a turn of behavior, and that he'll owe he'll owe God if he gets him out of this situation. Which, the dad goes to rehab, things get better for him, and then the real catalyst for the story is when he meets this old man who lives in this decrepit manor. Mr. Bowditch is his name, and Mr. Bowditch has a dog named Radar, and Mr. Bowditch hurts himself, and Charlie just so happens to be going by, and he helps Mr. Bowditch, and it then gets into this stretch of chapters where Charlie is helping out Mr. Bowditch day to day, grocery shopping, helping him clean up the place. He's basically like a caregiver. And this goes on for many, many chapters. And then, this is a spoiler for anyone who hasn't read the book, but eventually, obviously, Mr. Bowditch is very old. Health conditions catch up to him and he passes away. But he leaves all of his property and all of his inheritance, all of it, he leaves to Charlie. He leaves all of it to Charlie. Wow. Awesome. That's great. He leaves it all to Charlie, including a shed in the backyard, which contains, spoiler alert again, this contains the fantasy land that we go to later on in the book. They call it Empis, and it is essentially, it's heavily influenced by modern day fairy tales, like a Rumpelstiltskin, like kind of like a Jack and the Beanstalk, like any like modern story. It's kind of like a combination mishmash of all of those stories together, and it turns into essentially the fantasy land that Charlie spends the next majority of the book, and he has to solve this, defeat this great evil and save the realm and return it to the original ruling family, which is really just this one girl named Leah. And that's really the majority of the book. And that's the end result of the plot, but the original reason he goes there is to, I guess, in the plot, there's this like aging sundial thing, and Radar, the dog, is also aging and also dying, and so he uses this turntable to like de-age the dog. Like it makes Radar like young again. So that's his original reason for going there. Like he doesn't go there to solve anything. He just discovers that, oh, these people are, you know, they're under a plague, and there's bad rulers and all that type of stuff. And so he goes there to cure his dog, but then he ends up finding people that need his help. So that is essentially the gist of the book. Now, I was reading this book, and having read Stephen King before, I had certain expectations of maybe what I was going to read. Now, he's going to tailor his writing style to whatever the character is and whatever the genre is and whatever the circumstance and situation is. So, this is not going to read like the caretaker Jack from The Shining, and it is not going to read like just really any of his horror stories. Like, this is different. It's through the eyes, first person of a 17-year-old in high school, as he takes care of an old man and as he goes to a fantasy land and deals with all of these fantasy elements that he doesn't really understand, and so on and so forth. So, I'm reading this book, and for this, I gotta be honest, like, this probably was one of the biggest drags I've ever had in a long time reading a book. Like, you know when you read a book and you want to just finish the book, but you're struggling so much. You're like, oh man, like, I don't like this or I don't like that, but I'm already like so invested. Like, I've gotta continue it, and then you just keep pouring more and more time, and it gets to the point where you're like, what the fuck? Like, I want that time back. I've wasted all this time. Because that's essentially, like, I did not like this book. I mean, I guess I'm beating around the bush here, but I did not like this book. And there are some people on Goodreads, which is like the general review place for people to just, other than Amazon, to spew their reviews, their hate, their positivity. You can make a profile and review books. Usually, if a book has good reviews on Goodreads, like, it's like, oh, it's passed like a test or something. Like, it's a good place to kind of like gain like momentum early. It sometimes can be a make or break. I mean, it really just depends. Generally, what people are saying in the industry. So, and these aren't like industry professionals. These are just anyone who is reading the book, and anyone who's reading the book and has a profile and can review it. Sorry, my nose is bothering the fuck out of me right now. All right, anyway, did not like this book. Why did I not like the book? Well, first of all, I hate the main character. All right, like, if you can't get your reader, and like, Stephen King should know this, and when I was reading this book, like, there were a lot of parts of the book where I just didn't feel like he wrote it. Like, I know it has his name on it in ginormous, I mean, for fuck's sake, it has his name on it in ginormous fucking letters right here. Right here. It has his name on it. So, but I heard some rumors that, like, he might have, like, his son might have worked on the book with him. And then he had, like, at the end of the book, he talks about his researcher, his, like, research designer, who helped him work through the fairy tale stuff and helped him research the fairy tale stuff and helped him implement all the fairy tale stuff into this book. So, I mean, I'm not trying to take away his artistic creativity in this work. I'm sure he inserted he says himself, like, this was a story he wanted to write. He wanted to write something that had a feel-good nature to it because of COVID. Like, I understand that. Like, I'm not trying to take that away from him. But, like, this is just not a good book. Like, just being very blunt. And, okay, to go back, the main character, Charlie Reed, I mean, I wanted to punch this guy in the face more times than maybe any character in a very long time. Okay? I mean, there's a handful. right? Like M. Night Shyamalan's version of Avatar: The Last Airbender, a lot of punchable characters in that. You could even say like a it's so bad it's good kind of thing, like The Room. Like you watch a film like that. But the problem with his character is he's you what's like the empathetic thing, like, because this is always with a character, right? Like you want your reader, and these are like the unwritten rules, and sometimes the written rules if you're a writer investigating this stuff, of how to create a work, and it's to empathetically get your audience involved and get them caring about your character very early on. And so how do we do that with Charlie? Well, his mom tragically dies on a bridge, gets hit by a car. Wow, okay, we feel really bad for him. His dad is an alcoholic and he's abandoned. Wow, we really feel bad for him. It seems like, he's the only one who takes care of his dad. His life seems like it's in shambles. So, wow, we really feel bad for him. But the problem is that in a very quick period of time, like his issues just get rectified. Like the stuff with the dad, we kind of we go past it. And the dad, has a friend. I don't know if I forget if it's the uncle or if it's just the dad's friend or something, brings him to AA meetings and gets the dad on the straight and narrow. And things start to improve for Charlie's life. And see, that's the problem. Like, we, in 3 or 4 chapters, blaze past Charlie's life where he has this awful upbringing where he loses a parent, and his other parent is just distraught, and his whole life is in tatters. I mean, you could make an entire book about just that story, and it probably would have been very good. But no, it's like resolved in 4 chapters where, he's in high school, and not only that, I mean, this is something else I'm going to get to with his characterization, but the main part with this is that plot point is just completely rectified. Right off the bat, like it's solved, like it never freaking happened. It's like, okay, like we've moved past it. He made his deal with God so that he could get out of it, and so that's the one lingering thing. It's like, he owes the higher powers, which is really bizarre that we're even introducing God and religion in this very brief segment, because most of this book is fantasy. like we're in a fantasy land with fantasy people and magic and these weird creatures. Like, why is there like this deal with God? Like, why is that like it just conflicts? Like, it's weird. Like, why are you bringing secular religion into a fantasy based work? Like, the two things just do not overlap. I understand, like, this is a duality thing. It's our world, but the fantasy world is like connected to it. Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people said that this book is kind of a ripoff of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which I can see that, having read both, and having, they say they're going to make a film of this. I sure hope they freaking don't, but, having seen the film of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I mean, it just is. It's the same thing where it's a fantasy land that's hidden away, underneath the noses of humanity in our world, and young characters find this place, and they get thrust into an evil conflict where the world is all bad. Like in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, it's run by the Queen, the White Witch, and in this book, it's ruled by Leah's. Well, this is another spoiler for the book, but it's ruled by like a deformed, disheveled version of her brother, who has been corrupted by evil and corrupted by this creature that's like living underneath the palace, and at the and so you have these fantasy elements, and so the whole concept of God just like it doesn't make sense to bring that up. All right, but probably one of the worst parts about Charlie's character, getting back on topic about that, is that he turns into a complete douchebag after his life gets fixed, right? So, like, his dad's not an alcoholic anymore. His dad gets, like, a legitimate job. Because he was afraid. Charlie was afraid at one point that they were going to be homeless. Like, he talks about this. Like, they're going to be living under a bridge. They're going to be homeless. Like, he's freaking out about this. And it is, like, pieces of this book are engaging. But then you realize that so many of them go nowhere. and the characters are just such crap that like you don't care about it. So the problem with Charlie is that he turns into a complete jerk. And what do I mean by this? Well, he plays pranks on people. Like, he references a few pranks he played with one of his friends. And also, he's popular. He's on the football team in this book. And he's like this big high school jock who's, pretty muscular. Like, you talk to him about being like, 240, 250 pounds plus. He's a complete sports jock. So, like this kid is the biggest asshole on the face of the planet. Like, life kicked him in the balls early. It got magically rectified. Like, whether he believes his deal with God fixed it or not, it's like irrelevant. But then he's living a straight and narrow life, and all seems to be well. He doesn't seem to be depressed on a daily basis that his mom's not around. He lives a high school existence with his dad. His dad seems to be doing a lot better, going to AA meetings, has a real job. Like, you could have ended the fucking book right there. No fantasy stuff, no Mr. Bowditch and Radar, and then it's all over. But no, we have to believe that this jock jerk is going to then, out of the kindness of his heart, help out this old man, Mr. Bowditch, living up the street in his manor. And so that was the unbelievable thing, because he's just like, he's suddenly, like, his character just changes. It's like, oh, I'll help you, Mr. Bowditch, like, anything you need. Like, you need help going up the stairs? You need help wiping your ass? That's a legitimate scene where he helps him fucking do that, by the way. I'm not making that up. Anything. He is just, Mr. Bowditch is like, day and night, helps the fucking guy. I mean, even Mr. Bowditch is like, kid, like, go live your life. Like, what are you doing? And it's funny, I think I identified with Mr. Bowditch more than any character, because he's just like, a grumpy old man, and he's just like, can't this kid just fuck off? Like, eventually he warms up to him, and then, like, you're just defeated. You're like, okay, fine, whatever. I guess this kid is just going to do this. And then he starts to slack on everything else in his life. Like, now, like, Radar the dog and Mr. Bowditch are his entire, out of nowhere, they're his entire world. Okay? There's a scene, this is one of the scenes where I wanted to punch him in the face, where his coach, I forget the name of the coach, but it's his coach on the baseball team or the football team, and it's a scene where Charlie just, like, gives him the finger, essentially. Like, the coach is reaming him out for not practicing or not having his head in the game, and Charlie just, like, storms away and quits the team. And it's like, dude, like, you let your team down. Like, like, what are we, like, are we supposed to root for you in this situation? Like, you just use people for whatever. Like, this guy is one of the most selfish assholes on the face of the planet. Because think about this. Like, he uses people for the things that he wants, and then once he gets them, he moves on. It's like, oh, I'm going to make the deal with God so I can get out of this situation. And then, oh, I'm with my sports team, and I'm, like, popular, and I'm with, like, the sports players and stuff. Oh, all right, well, I use them for popularity, so now I'm going to move on to, Mr. Bowditch and dealing with the fucking dog. So, like, do you see the pattern here where he's just constantly using people? Like, the book makes you want to believe that he actually cares about these circumstances and these people, but it's just done so sloppily. Like, it's such a sloppy delivery, and his character is all over the place. And, like, that's one of the biggest reasons I didn't like this book, because his character is just ridiculous. And then later in the book, when he gets to the fantasy land, it's like, oh, the prince that was promised. Like, they use the term from Game of Thrones where they talk, like, spoiler in that, but when they refer to Jon Snow as the prince that was promised, like, it's the same terminology that they use to describe this stupid kid who just fell out of, like, so they give him the Mary Sue complex, and then they make him a douche, like, it's his character transformation is one of the most unbelievably frustrating things I've ever experienced in a book. I hated and the way he talks too is annoying. Where he makes all these like fourth wall, like he breaks the fourth wall all the time. Where he talks to the audience and is like, "Wow, you're probably reading this book, not believing me," and wow, that's and also like the pop culture references. He makes so many pop culture references that like I'm just literally face palming. I'm like, like speaking of Game of Thrones is mentioned in this. Like he mentioned Star Wars in this. Like there's all these random pop culture reference. Like it just the way his character talks. Like he's like 15 different characters at once, and it was just unbelievably frustrating to read this book. It was awful. This fairy tale book. Even when you get to the fairy tale stuff, like he's imprisoned for most of the fucking book anyway. Like he so like again, this is spoilers for like the plot of the book. So like he cures the dog. Like they get there and like they don't like they have to sneak around and stuff. He cures the dog, puts it on the dial, and freaking makes it younger. And they almost escape, but then he gets captured. So I'm thinking to myself, if he did escape with the dog, would they have just like ran back to their world and said like screw you to the fantasy world? Because the fact that he stayed, then he's able to help the prisoners and help that Leah girl kind of get her throne back. Which, speaking of that, the love interest where he sees her and it's like it's the dumbest, most cliche thing. It's like he's instantly like love struck. Like he sees her and he's like, wow, what an insanely pretty girl. It's like, dude, like you're not even gonna try for subtlety here. Like you're just gonna like hit us over the head. Oh, you're the prince that was promised, and she's the princess that had her throne stolen. It's like, like it's the dumbest. And like that's the problem with the book because they revel in that, right? They're like, oh, haha, this is cliche, so that's why it's cool. No, like you can't have a book that's a bunch of fantasy cliches tied together with a character who's all over the place. And this book also, talking about the length at the beginning of my review, it's way too fucking long. It's essentially 3 stories in one. And I referenced this at the beginning of my review. It's the first story is the one I told you about, a kid who loses his mom, his dad's an alcoholic, and he has to get out of that situation. The second story is about a spoiled brat kid who takes care of an old man and a dog. And it goes on for many chapters, and then the old man dies, and then the kid gets to keep the dog. That's story number 2. Story number 3 is all of the fantasy shit where he goes down under the well and stops this evil and makes his dog younger. But all those stories are shoved into one fucking thing. Like, it's just way, way, way too much. Way too much. So, it's just long, like drawn out. The characters are just not memorable at all. I think his dad is probably the most memorable character. Like his character's consistent. His character had development. He was in a bad situation, came out of it, and then he has a cautious tone to the world. He's probably the only one. I mean, maybe him and then the old guy, Mr. Bowditch. Like, they're the only ones. The main character is, like, he's the most spoiled fucking brat and just gets everything handed to him. Like, it doesn't feel like he has any adversity in this book. Like, they try, like, when he's imprisoned and, like, that goes on for chapters upon chapters, like, they try to, oh, wow, he's in a really sticky situation. How's he going to get out of this one? And it's like he isn't, like, I would have maybe at least given the book maybe a pass, like, if he had, like, some magic thing he used or whatever. But, like, so many of the fight scenes, he's just, oh, yeah, this is my brute strength where I, like, pummeled a guy in football. It's like, dude, like, just shut the fuck up. like, seriously. Like, again, if he was like, all you had to do with his character was just make him more likable. Like, if he was the put upon kid, maybe he was a nerdier kid. Like, why did we have to make him this popular jock person? Because it's incompatible. Like, what jocks in your high school would do any of what he did? A, with the old guy, and B, going into the fantasy world. None of them. None of them would do this. And for him, it's like, oh, I've got to help the old guy because this is my promise with God. But even if you're using that as an excuse, his character development of how he acts and how he just brazenly talks about people as if the world owes him something. That's the way his character acts. It's if the world owes him fucking everything. And it's so frustrating. Like, I'm just like, why am I rooting for somebody who just, like, walks around like, my gym teacher, like, oh, how dare he not understand that I need to miss copious amounts of school time so I can go fucking play with some old guy's balls. Like, okay, like, what, how dare they, how dare this fantasy world, like I just expect it to just roll out the red carpet for me, where, oh, I just meet people. Oh, I just met this person. Wow, that was really convenient. Like, all these conveniences once he gets to the fantasy world. Oh, conveniently meets this person who gives him shelter. Conveniently meets this person who gives him this. Conveniently. I'm like, holy shit. The amount of conveniences in this book are absurd. Oh my god! Like, I cannot believe this is a Stephen King book. This book is terrible. I wouldn't recommend this book, and that's why I'm making this video, because like I don't usually review books because I haven't read one that's just this sloppy, and I think it's more the fact that it's Stephen fucking King, and he just shoehorned this book, and it is god awful. The character is so completely terrible, and like that's the thing I'm just gonna keep driving home as I try to wrap this up, because I know I'm 32 minutes or whatever into this review at this point, but the character's terrible. The Charlie Reed character is I wish he had gotten fucking offed in that fucking fight scene. Like, he is just a son of a bitch, and again, and then like even the end of the book, he's like, oh, I graduated almost magna cum laude, and now I'm I'm a professor at NYU. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm sure the world just gave you everything. It's like, oh yeah. And what happened after my fantasy adventure? Oh, I got everything. Oh, but the only thing he doesn't get to go back to the fantasy world. Oh, he gives that up. It's like, we must protect this secret. It's like, dude, you literally have everything because Mr. Bowditch left you shit tons of gold. You're rich for the foreseeable future. You don't have to work a fucking day. Why are you even a professor? You don't have to work a day in your life. Because yeah, I mean that's a plot point. Because I guess that there's gold in the fantasy world, and the old guy was paying for stuff with all of this gold that he had accumulated, and it's still there. He inherits it when the old guy dies, so he's just fucking infinitely rich. And then there's other characters that try to steal it, like this Christopher Polly or something. It's like, he shows up for like one chapter and he's never mentioned in the book again. Like, he has like a random aside where it's like, I bet you're wondering what happened to Christopher Polly. It's like, oh yeah, that character that was in like fucking 18 chapters ago. Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. Oh my god. Like, it just... And like, I didn't remember like any of the fantasy characters. Like, I didn't like, they have the most annoying way of talking. Like, the way, like, instead of saying no, they say like nah, and it's like just the way they talk. Like, I wanted to literally take a fucking bazooka and shoot all of them individually. I was like, this like, everything about the book was making me want to drink bleach. I was like, the character sucks. The side characters suck. We're not getting enough development with really anyone. We've had plot points that have already come and go, with the kid's early childhood with the dad drinking and then the old guy dying. It's like we've already had like multiple stories, and it's just so overblown and just overtold at this point. Like it's just what are we doing? Like what is going on in this book? I've ranted about this book, and not like my friend P Dog, like the one I was talking about the writer's block earlier. Throughout reading the book, I've tried to just take a check on my sanity, because I was like, am I crazy, or is this book just terrible? Because like I'm painfully trying to get through it, and it's just awful. The best feeling in the world was when I completed it. I was like, oh my god, I finished it. I didn't quit. I didn't give up. I did it. I fucking did it. It's like playing like the worst video game of all time on the hardest difficulty. You finally beat it. You don't feel accomplished because you did it. You feel accomplished because, oh, it's over. It's over, and you never have to do it again. That is the feeling of finishing this book. It is just, I'm going to be talking in circles. Do not buy this book. I as an author, like, I feel bad, like, telling people to just, not indulge in something, but if it sucks shit, and it sucks shit. Like, I can't sugarcoat it. The book is just terrible. Like there's nothing about it. I told you maybe a few things that were okay with it, but like for the most part, it is awful. The character doesn't speak like a 17-year-old. He's a spoiled fucking brat. He feels like the world should like owes him everything. The fantasy world is just like thrown together with like all of these like fabled stories, and then they try to like they pull a MacGuffin out where he like the villain like a childhood story that his mom told him, like reciting that was it like it's just so shoehorned. I'm like, really like how does this world even fucking work? There's a scene where like two moons collide into each other. Like, what is happening? Oh my god. Well, it's done. It's done. The book's done. The book is done. And I am moving on. The next book I'm reading is Silver in the Bone by Alex Bracken. I highly suggest it. I met her in person at a book event, and she signed it for me. And I've actually, a lot of the writing tip books, Anatomy of a Story by John Truby. If you're looking to craft your book better than this sack of garbage over here, you should read it. Where is it? It's over here. It's behind this freaking thing. Where is it? I like all this. Here, so I'm going to read this at some point, too. Freaking Ender in Exile. It's a sci-fi. Orson Scott Card. You can't go wrong with them. John Truby. Anatomy of a Story. This thing is freaking awesome. It is literally the Bible of storytelling. It's mainly for screenplays, but it has the like how to craft a story down to the like take it apart, make it a sandwich, like every individual piece, bread, cheese, onions, lettuce, tomatoes, mayo, everything laid out, how to craft it. It's great. It's really great. I recommend it, and you'll do much better than this. I don't know what drug Stephen King was on when he fucking wrote this book. And see, that's why I go back to like, did like his son help him write it? Are those rumors true? Like, did other people have a hand in this? Like, I cannot believe this is a Stephen King book. Like, I compare my experience reading The Shining, like, I was so gripped by that book. Like, the just the creepiness and the horror and the things, like, I was like, even Misery. The fact that it's just an endless horror story. The guy just cannot escape. You're just, and then he almost escapes, and it's just like, oh man, like it gets under your skin. It makes you want to read more. That's what Stephen King's capable of. What is this? Why? What did he do? This is not. Oh man, this is bad. I don't know. I've seen some reviews agreeing with me about this. I've also seen a majority kissing his ass. I don't know if that's just like the Stephen King treatment. He can do no wrong. I don't know, but if anyone has an opinion and has watched this far, please drop it below, because I need to know that people understood, like, when reading this thing, that, like, they were on the same page. Like, did you feel the same thing? Was there just, like, like, you're reading this book, like, what? Was it painful? Did it take you a long time? Because again, like there were some nights where I was like, oh, I'm going to try to read 2 chapters. Like I couldn't read 2 chapters. Reading 1 was bad enough. All right, guys, that's the end of the review. I've said all the main points that I wanted to. I don't know if I'll do other book reviews, but maybe as I possibly unveil stuff about my own book, maybe I do this to try to, what a way to start, right? Freaking bashing one of Stephen King's books, which again deserves it, but I don't know if this is my brave leap into the world of writing and publishing. So, but listen, like I'm harsh about my stuff. Like, I mean, my friend, he edits my stuff, beta reads it. Like if I see something like on the surface, because again, you always go back to the essentials of storytelling, and if there's something there that's misaligned, like you look for the root cause. Like, and there's too much about this book that just doesn't work. And like I said, it could have been 3 short stories. It could have been. And if you had just changed his character a bit and made it likable and made a plot that actually, fucking made you want to fucking continue, maybe I would have given a shit, but I didn't. So anyway, I don't recommend this book. It gets like a 1 out of 5 if I'm writing it like 1 star out of 5. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. I want to throw this thing in the trash. I'm not actually, but it's sinful to fucking get rid of a book like that. But I don't know. Maybe there's some donation drive that'll freaking. I don't know. Actually, I don't know if I should make anyone suffer reading this thing, but yep, that's my review. All right, guys. Thank you for watching, engaging with me, and maybe I'll see you for more book reviews. But until then, see you later. Peace.